Well, good afternoon and welcome back to another live iThemes training event. We are so glad that you're with us today, and we have with us also Rebecca Gill, who is the president of Web Savvy Marketing. She is a real-world SEO expert and has lots of experience. We've had the wonderful privilege of having Rebecca with us here at iThemes Training for quite a few SEO webinars. And today's webinar is talking about digging deep into competitive research and finding out why your competition is outranking you in the search engine results. So we're thrilled to have Rebecca with us, and we'll turn it over to her in just a minute. I do want to add a couple of notes as we start off today, though. First of all, Rebecca has a lot of content to get through today, so we won't be stopping for questions during the presentation. We're going to fill up probably most of the hour with excellent content from Rebecca. So if you have questions, you can drop them in the chat room if you'd like. I'll try to capture as many of those as possible, but please hang to the end. But even more important than that, let me encourage you that at the very end of Rebecca's presentation today, we have a special offer that I think everybody here is going to be interested in. So don't drop off right as the webinar ends. Between the end of the presentation and the Q&A, you're going to be able to hear about something very interesting that Rebecca has coming. So let's turn it over to Rebecca. It's great to have you with us here at iThemes Training. Rebecca, tell us what we're going to be talking about today.
Thank you so much, and welcome everybody. So we are going to be talking about competitive research, and not just trying to figure out why someone's ranking better than you are, but to figure out how you can rank better, because that's really how I use it. You can't have a really well-organized SEO campaign without having some strong competitor research in the mix. And that's because you really need to have a solid understanding of what's happening around you in the world of SEO and your industry and your competition, so that you can ascertain, what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, and where you need to make some short and long-term improvements with your SEO and your online marketing strategy. So as we go through the tools today, and that's what I really want to focus. Someone had been asking in the chat room if we're going to have some slides today, and we are not. I don't want you to be in PowerPoint today. I want you to be in the actual software that we're going to review, so you can see the data that I like to look at, and so we can talk about how we use that data to make our SEO and our online marketing even better. But some of the things that I want to chat with first, I just want to give you a little bit of background on why this is so important. Kind of the process that you should be going through. And then I want to talk about the strategy that I did when I was, going through this and some of the information. Okay, so first let's just start. What are the important things that you're going to glean from some competitive research? Why would you want to do it? So the first thing is, and this is probably one of the most important, is when you start to use actual data and real tools, you learn who your real online competition is. And a lot of times that's not who you think it is, and it's not the same people that you have in real life. So you may have, real life competitors that you may compete with for proposals or sales and storefront activity and things like that, but they may be very different than your online competition. And when you start to go through this research process, you will blatantly see who that online competition is and how much of a threat they are to your own activity. You'll be able to see what keywords your competitors are trying to rank for and what ones they're actually ranking for. You'll get to discover their top keywords, so those keywords that are bringing in the most traffic to them. You'll get to find their top pages. What pages bring in traffic for them, and how can you utilize that information to turn that into success for your own activity? You'll get to discover your competitors' backlinks and their referral traffic, so you could potentially target those same or similar sites to build up your online profile for those backlinks. And then that traffic it's not just about the backlinks, it's also about that traffic coming into your website that drives real people who are interested in what you're doing. You'll get to see some information about the social media activity about your competitors. Where do they really spend their time and what's important to them? You'll discover some great ideas for future keyword content and for blog posts and maybe white papers or ebooks, whatever it works with your industry and your niche. You're going to be able to get some great information on that. And I'm going to show you how to do that. And then you're going to see probably one of the most important things is you're going to see that everybody stinks at one point or another with SEO. Not everyone's superstars. Everyone has gaps, even myself, and you're going to see this, and this is going to empower you to know where that you can actually succeed and you can beat them. So let's talk about a little bit about the process that one would go through, because the process of competitive research is investigation, documentation, review, and then analysis. You have to really start digging into the data, documenting what you're finding, reviewing that data for trends, and then you need to start making some decisions based on those trends. And that's the kind of process I want to take you through. So step number one is we document our traditional competitors. Step number two is we're going to focus on today is we're going to go through some tools and we're going to start looking at those competitors and trying to discover online competitors that we didn't even know existed. We're going to review websites one by one. The next the activity that you'd want to do is review their social media activity and see what they're doing offline of their website, so you can kind of get an idea of other activities that are taking place. You document your findings. I love, once I have spreadsheets built up of my findings, I love to color code these with a green, yellow, red, to green for who's strong, red who really stinks. So that, and I do that for each kind of data point, so then I can start really seeing some good trends. And then once I see what's happening with my competition and how I fare against them, because I grade myself just as well as I grade the competition, now I can start seeing areas that I need to improve on. And that's really important too, because you need to make sure that the activity that you're spending and the time that you're devoting to this will translate into actual action steps for you. Everything in SEO should be actionable. You should have a plan that you have to go through. So that's the plan that we typically take. And now let's start jumping into some software so we can really see how to best do this. Okay, so on the chat bar, there is a link to an online course. And so I did create an online course if you all or part of you want to go and have additional information and see all the templates that I use for collecting this data. And then I have some video recordings too, but you don't have to. I just want to make sure that that's available. And when I did that course, and as I went through and prepared for this webinar, what I decided to do was because you have to use real companies, you have to really use real websites. And I wanted to pick something that would be familiar with everybody in the audience. So I decided to pick hosting companies and review hosting companies and compare them, one to another. So the companies that I was looking at, first and foremost, is SiteGround. And I pretended I was SiteGround. And as I looked at data, I was SiteGround. And I compared SiteGround to GoDaddy, HostGator, Bluehost, WP Engine, and Liquid Web. And I picked all of those because most of them, if not all of them, are targeting some form of managed WordPress hosting, which is a great new buzzword for our industry. And I also picked them because I have familiarity with their offering and how they kind of relate to both their target market and what they offer in the marketplace, because that gave me a better understanding as I was going through the data. Basically, I just tried to pretend that this was my real world competitors, and I was doing research based on that. So let's jump in. My first software package we are going to review is DinoMapper, and it's just Dino as in the animal and then mapper.com. This is a paid-for software solution. However, they do, I believe, offer you to have either a free trial or you can go through and crawl one website. And so the reason I love DinoMapper is DinoMapper does a couple of things. First and foremost, it's going to go and crawl the website of whoever you put in. You don't need to have access to the WordPress admin panel. You don't have to have access to anything. You just put their URL in, and DinoMapper will go out there and crawl the entire website that every link it finds, it's going to follow. If you're in a small website, it can do this in like an hour. If you're in a large website like the WP Engine site, it will take many hours, if not overnight, to complete. I started to do this process with SiteGround, but I had to abandon it because SiteGround has so many pieces of data that aren't showing in Google's actual index. It was going to take forever for me to do, and I just didn't want to wait around waiting for it. So I just abandoned it. Just to give you kind of a benchmark of content. So in Google's index, which means the amount of content that Google's showing for each website, WP Engine had a reasonable amount of 2,500. SiteGround had 6 million. So that's why it was going to take SiteGround so long for this package to go through and to investigate. So I just switched over to WP Engine because I wanted to have some meaningful information for you to share with you. So when we come into DinoMapper, after the software goes through and crawls the entire website, it provides me a complete list of content, and I can view this content in different ways, which for me is important because I'm a little bit OCD and I like to view data in just a certain way. But I know my husband's completely different and my daughter's different and everyone else is different, and we all like to digest information in different formats. And DinoMapper will appeal to all of us. The current view right now is my preferred view, which what it does is it shows you different types of areas within the website in a folder presentation. So there's the home page. This is a child page of the home page, another child, and these guys are grandchildren. And it will continue to go down, and you can actually come over to this right-hand side of the screen and say how many levels you would like to go down or how many levels you would like to see, and you can go up to 10. And that might seem crazy to some of you, but we have actually gone through and crawled people's websites where there have been more than 10 layers of content that you got to filter through. And I actually use this tool for all of our web design projects because the majority of the people we interact with don't have an idea of how much content's really out there. And the older the site is and the longer it's been around, the more content sitting out in cobwebs, just collecting dust that people have completely forgot about. So let's look at DinoMapper, and let me show you the different views. So this is the current view, which is a folder view that I love. But you Rebecca, can also come in here.
Can we get you to zoom in just a little bit on your screen again?
Absolutely. There we go. Hopefully that's a little bit better. You can also come in here and see the style and a different presentation. One of them is called a circle. And I like the circle because while you can't take a ton of information away from the circle, it gives you a really good brief snapshot. So I can see where a lot of WP Engine's content sitting, and it's sitting within the news and the updates. And it says that right there, but it's very small and it'll be hard for you to read. I can also see that the support area has a lot of information as well. So that gives me a snapshot, but now let me come over and look at, go back to the folder. And when I go back to the folder and I'm looking at the folder view, I can really start to drill down. And remember I said that the news and the updates had a lot of data? Well, here's all that data. You can see all of the different titles, which you wouldn't easily be able to see from their website. Now, the reason I like this is, say I am a competitor of WP Engine and I'm their content marketer and I'm struggling coming up with some ideas to write about or videos and that type of thing. I see a world of information here. I mean, there's just tons of content ideas that jump out at me that says, you know what, they've written about this, I can do this better. And it'll help brainstorm future content efforts, which I love. So a few things that I do also love about the package is you can actually export the entire sitemap. I can export it via a PDF or an Excel file, and what that Excel file will do is it brings me all of those URLs, all of the page titles. I can see their meta information, and it will actually give me also the number of words per piece of content. That's pretty powerful when you're trying to dig into a competitor website and really know what's there and how they're bringing in traffic. So this is the tool I like to start with. Again, it is $50 a month if you want to subscribe to it, but I'm pretty sure you can either put one website in for free and do one website at a time, or they have some type of trial. Okay, so let's move on to the next one, which is another free tool. This is called the MozBAR. And if you have never used the MozBAR, I would definitely encourage you to use the MozBAR because it's completely free and it lets you dig into people's website. So it's available at moz.com, and you can just search for MozBAR in Google and it will be, I believe it's the first result. And then all you have to do is come in here and hit this yellow button and you can download it. And then once you download it, it will add it to your website. And I'm going to flip over to SiteGround and show you how to use this. So once this tool is installed, all I have to do is go over when I'm on a website and I click on this little M guy up here in the corner. And what he does is he brings up this bar right here. And it can be at the bottom or the top. I like it at the top. So when I click over to page analysis, I can start seeing information about the source and the code within any website page on the internet. Now, could I read the source code? Yes, I could. I could view that through the browser, but it's messy and it's a pain in my butt and it takes me forever to filter through it. But this is instant, and I can see so much data really quickly. So for example, I get to see the page title. So this is the meta description that's showing for the search engines. I can see the meta title, and then I can also see the meta description. Why would these matter? They matter because when you're looking at these, you're seeing, hopefully, the terms that the website owner wants to target on in that phrase. If they've done their work and they've done their SEO properly, you're seeing the keywords in these data points. And so for SiteGround, after looking at them, I can see that hosting services is something that they're targeting with their homepage. We see it in the title, we see it again in the description. And then sometimes you see more than one. It can be variations, but typically if they've got it going on with SEO, it'll be very consistent. So now we go to see the H1. H1 is important for the search engines because it tells them what this page is supposed to be about, just like those metas. Now they're using web hosting. That's a new keyword. Now if we look at the H2, we're seeing hosting platform, potentially another keyword phrase. Now, if we go down to the bolds, which bolds do have influence in SEO, we start seeing shared hosting and cloud hosting and dedicated servers and Joomla templates. And there's a lot of keywords there. And so you might be asking yourself, why does Rebecca care? What does she care about these keywords? I want to know what these people are targeting. I want to know what they're going after, because I could potentially use these same keywords in my website or my blog. And I've used these to build up a seed word list. If you've ever taken my To the Top SEO course or even one of these webinars, you know that I am very focused on creating a seed list of SEO phrases that I could potentially weave into a sitemap or future blog posts and go after with search. Using this Moz tool and this MozBAR allows you to do that. You can also see some alt text, which is kind of funky to see: no avatar, no avatar, no avatar. That's not a good experience for the user. So that definitely would need some work on the part of SiteGround. But so let's close that up for a second. And one of the other things that I do is I do a visual inspection. So just like I was going through that MozBAR and I was looking at it, I just use my plain old eyes and I start looking at the website, and I go from head of the website down to the footer to look for keywords. And what do I see right away? I see web hosting, keyword phrase. Shared hosting is a keyword phrase. Cloud hosting, you can come over to WordPress services and start seeing additional keyword opportunities. And as you scroll down the page, you're going to start to see them repeated and repeated. If we go down to their footer, they've got a plentiful amount of keyword phrases in their footer. And because they're in the footer and they're site-wide and they're creating those internal linking structures for the search engines, I know those are really important to SiteGround. And I would expect that SiteGround is ranking on them somewhere in search. They may not be at the top of page 1, but I know that these phrases are all important. If you're a hosting company and you are building a potential list of keywords and you're formulating that seed list so that you want to use in your SEO process, this is where you want to come. This has got just tons of information. Another place to do it is the HTML sitemap. There's two types of sitemaps in SEO. One is an XML sitemap, which is uploaded for search engines. Another one is the HTML. Google suggests that you have both. Not very many people in the world anymore use HTML, but good old GoDaddy does. So let's look at them because they are definitely one of our competitors. So when we pull up their sitemap, and let me make this bigger because that is super small. Good heaven, it doesn't look like that font's getting very big at all. Okay, so hopefully you guys can see this. So now we start looking at GoDaddy sitemap, and what are we seeing? We're seeing a slew of keywords again. Domain name registration, domain name transfers, new domains, bulk domains, search engine optimization. Don't use their search engine optimization, please. Okay, so then let's move down forward. Website hosting, web hosting, cloud servers, SSL certificates, email, they're targeting email, professional email. Oddly enough, they're targeting bookkeeping as well, online bookkeeping. Website builder, we know from their commercials that they target website builder. Did you know they're also targeting web design services? So the HTML of, the HTML sitemap of a website, if it's available, is an excellent source for keywords for building your seed list. I would also look down at their footer, but as you see when you look at it, there's not much there from a keyword standpoint. So that's why we look at different approaches. And let's just, for kicks, pull up the Moz toolbar for this guy. Actually, let's go back to GoDaddy's homepage and we'll see what they have. So let's see, now we see they're targeting with their homepage domain name registrar, which we would assume that it's hosting, but apparently it is not. The homepage is not focused on that. And so then we can see go with GoDaddy is the H1 doesn't have a keyword in its focus. So GoDaddy is not doing a lot for me when I look at the mouse toolbar. Let's go and look at Bluehost, because this is one that I bring up in the course, and I want to make sure that I hit it because I want you to see something that's used here that isn't necessarily a great thing. So when we pull up Bluehost, let me zoom in on this guy again. Okay, so when I come into Bluehost, now I'm going to start seeing something different. I see web hosting again is their page title. Let's see. I see web hosting services there underneath their meta description. But what the heck? What are all these meta keywords? So meta keywords, if people use them, are a great place to try to see what they're potentially targeting. Now, here's the interesting thing about meta keywords. In the United States, the only people using those are your competitors or the search engines for spam triggers. They are not used for good in the United States. So if you have a website that is only focused in the United States or anywhere outside the Asia Pacific region, do not fill out the keywords in the meta keywords option. There's a reason why the Yoast SEO plugin doesn't have that pushed in your face, because they don't want you to use it either. The only search engines that use this for good are those in the Asia Pacific region, and that's why some of the plugins still have them available. So my advice to you is, if you're not in that region and you're not targeting buyers in that region, don't use them, because people like me are using them to collect data on you, and you don't want to give that data away free. However, it is out there available for you, and you can see like people like Bluehost are using them, and you can learn from them. And you know, just if these apply to you, you document these into your seed list and you note them as potential options for keywords for you. Okay, so that's the for the three first places I look. I look at DinoMapper, which again allows you to crawl a website and export anybody's website's entire sitemap for you to Excel or PDF. Love Excel because you can sort and look at things in different ways. We use the Moz toolbar to download, we use the Moz toolbar to highlight things like meta titles and meta descriptions, H1, headers, bolds, and alternates, and even if they're a little bit silly, those meta keywords. So, and then we use the actual website itself. So now let's go to one of my second favorite tools, which is SpyFy. SpyFy I use to collect a number of data. And if you've never used SpyFy on anybody, you're in for a treat. And here's how I use this. I use it for my competition. I use it for myself. But every time I get an inquiry in for someone, I actually use it for them too. So I really want to see how much website they're getting to how much traffic they're getting to their website, because it helps me decide if they could potentially afford my services or not. Especially when it comes to SEO. I mean, I've been doing SEO for 15 years and I'm not cheap. I charge a good amount of money per hour. And if someone comes in and I see that their monthly SEO value for clicks is $50, I know they're not going to be able to afford my services, nor are they going to want to allocate the funds over to that. And it would be hard for me to recommend them to do it. So I use this as an investigation tool for prospects. But let's look at what's really important from a competitive research standpoint for these. So I use it to look at things like domain age, which is right over here for SiteGround. How long has this domain been in existence? It's been around for 10 years. When I looked at my hosting companies, they were all around from anywhere from 6 to 10 years. So that's not, when it comes to them, that doesn't give me a lot of information. So next I start to look at things like, where is their SEO, or excuse me, where is their website traffic coming from in search? Is it through organic search or is it through paid? Now, when we look at SiteGround, we see that currently the majority, if not 100% the majority of their traffic is coming from organic. Although the funny thing is when you look over at this data right here, I just noticed that that doesn't make any sense. That the so what SpyFy is giving us is on the right-hand side is paid activity, so pay-per-click ads. On the left is organic. So my organic is $1 million per month is what they're estimating the traffic coming into, and the clicks coming into SiteGround being valued at. But when you look over on the right-hand side, they're valuing it at almost $20,000, yet in the middle they're telling me that it's 100% paid, which makes no sense whatsoever because that doesn't equal out. So let's go and let's look at GoDaddy. Let's see what GoDaddy's given us. You're going to be floored by these numbers. Okay, so let's look at GoDaddy. They've got a monthly SEO click value of $15 million. Now compare that to the estimated ad spend of $480,000. That is per month, folks. And this, you might be thinking this is exaggerated, but really I've actually compared that to people who I've spoken with who's told me what their actual budgets are for pay-per-click, and this is pretty darn accurate when I've looked at SpyFy to validate the information they've sent, or I've looked at this data first and then spoken with them, and they've validated that SpyFy is accurate. So that's a lot of money per month on pay-per-click. They could definitely benefit from some more SEO activity. So let's look at the rest of the data, because those are really important data points for me as a website owner and as a SEO consultant. I also look at their keyword universe. GoDaddy's keyword universe is 61,000. So that means that there's 61,000 potential keywords that are coming into their website and driving traffic. And if we scale down further, we're seeing just made it to page 1, 2,300. 2,300 keyword phrases just made it to page 1. 2,300 also just fell off page 1. Which is, you know, when you've got a competitor that's doing well, this gives you information. And the wonderful thing is you can actually drill down and see those keywords. Here's something I like is, well, who are their top organic competitors? You also see top paid competitors. And this is where I mentioned at the very beginning is, you know, we think we know who our online competitors are because we start by basing this on who we compete with in real life. You know, who do we know that we have to, in real life, in person, on, you know, proposals or actual sales, who are we competing with? These might be completely different than who's in the online version of our world. And this box here tells us that, and it makes us kind of reevaluate who those people might be. When we come down a little bit further, now we're seeing how these keywords overlap. And this is wonderful too, because you can see here's GoDaddy's, you know, their universe is the big blue one. 1 and 1, I'm sorry, is in red. That's their universe, and then Namecheap is in green. But what I love is that overlap, that you can see where everybody starts to overlap, and you can drill down in SpyFy's reports, and it will even show you on a individual basis how many keywords per vendor will overlap, and you know where that data is lying. And we can see the same information for pay-per-click. Now we can start seeing some top keywords, some top paid keywords. There's that web hosting again and website hosting. And then give some ad recommendations. So that's not truly exciting, but what is truly exciting is we can drill down and see additional information. And now SpyFy, by the way, is a paid service. However, it does offer free data. And that screen I just showed you, you get to see that for free on anybody. And before I started paying for it, I always used their free version because it does give you so much data. Here's another great piece of data. You can actually see traffic over time, and if there's a Google algorithm change during that time frame, and which helps you see potential shifts. And we can change it from 6 months to 2 years or 5 years, and you can see them growing over time. And then you can see where they may have had a dip based on an algorithm change with Google. Just hover over any of the cues and you can see that data start to appear. I love this data over on the right. Page 1 keywords. They have 17,000 keywords sitting on page 1. Almost there, which is ranking 11 to 16, 8,000. And then pages 2 through 5, which no one ever goes to in Google, but there's potential there and you could quickly push those up to page 1, 43,000. That's a whole lot of information out there floating around. And, you know, and options for getting people in with search. Another data point I love is inbound links. And you can see that they are driving the majority of their inbound links and referral traffic from affiliates. So, you know, you can compare this data from one vendor to another. And when I was looking at the hosting companies, 3 of them were from affiliates, 2 were blogs, and one was from news. And then like you can start to see information over time. And if I wanted to change this and add in SiteGround.com and say I want to change who they're showing as my competitors, I can do that as well. I can bring in SiteGround and I can scroll down and you'll see SiteGround right there. And you can highlight on any vendor and it will show you where they come into the list, which is just a great tool. And there's hours and hours of data that you can come in here. I'm just trying to get you to see some of the the wonderful tools and what really is available. And you can click and drill down, like I said, further. So I just clicked on the page 1 keywords. So now I'm seeing all the page 1 keywords for for GoDaddy. And I can sort these from the different columns and make the, and reshuffle that data. I can also change it from page 1 to what SpyFy believes to be the most valuable keywords, keywords 2 through 5. So this is important for not just your competitors, but also for yourself. If you can quickly see where you're at on page 2 through 5 in search and what URLs it pertains to, you know where you can spend a little bit of time with SEO and push those keywords from page 2 up to page 1, which means from getting no traffic to getting potential lots of traffic. So this data is really important for you, your website or blog, as well as looking at your competitors. So that's the highlights of SpyFy. Again, lots more data that you can go into here, but I don't want to spend all my time on SpyFy because we have other potential software packages to look at. Because I want to go to SEMrush, which is my absolute favorite, and I am addicted to SEMrush. I introduced it to Sarah Dunn, who is another marketer, and she said that once her free trial of SEMrush ran out, she felt like she was lost because it does provide so much good data. And so, again, this is a paid through service, but it does offer a free trial. So if you're gonna go and do a true SEO project for yourself or even a client of yours, sign up for their free trial and give it a whirl for the time that allows you to have that data for free because it is so powerful. So let's jump into SpyFy and see what, SEMrush and see what SEMrush has to offer. So I use the same data and structure that I did with the other tools to create a spreadsheet of the different content or the different element variables for each of my 6 hosting companies, pretending that I'm SiteGround, and I was comparing them from one to each other. And as I did that, we saw that the SEO value on SpyFy of GoDaddy was really, really high. Well, SEMrush supports that same type of information. And you can see the search traffic right here. It is estimating for SiteGround to be 122,000 with organic search versus the 1.3 thousand for paid. Nice, great overview data. The traffic cost for organic for them, 395,000. When we compare that, to the other vendors, I think GoDaddy was like 19 million in SEMrush, and it can Bluehost was like 4 million. So you can just see the different types of data, which will really start to point out to you who's strong in search, who's strong in spending their time in AdWords, and you start to glean some of that information from them. But so just let's do a little overview. I can drill down by country. So if you are on this webinar and you're not in the US, don't worry about that. You can pull any other country and there's 115 more waiting for you to dig into. You can look at both desktop data or you can look at mobile data. This beginning screen gives you a lot of information, and from here you can drill down to wherever you'd like to go. I love this screen, and then I love, I believe it's the traffic analytics screen, which we'll look at next. So I can see organic activity. I can start to see breakout by country. I can see my top organic keywords, and I can export this or view this in detail. You can see the traffic over time over here. Both paid and organic, and I can shift this from 1 year to 2 years or all time, or go back to just the last 6 months. I can see my organic competitors. One thing that was showing up as I was going through all these vendors is I did not put Emotion Hosting on my list of competitors, but from an online standpoint, it was a big competitor for all of these vendors. It kept popping up in reports. 2 other ones that kept popping up is WP Beginner and Yoast, and neither one of those sell hosting, but they're competing with the same keywords. So even though they're not a traditional competitor, they are an online competitor because They don't sell hosting, but they talk about hosting and they promote hosting. Therefore, they are true competitors, and you do need to look at them and pay attention to them. One thing I like about the SEMrush report is it shows you branded versus non-branded. So a branded phrase would be SiteGround. It would be a product name. Like for GoDaddy, I think they've got Website Tonight is one of their services, and GoDaddy. And what was the interesting thing about GoDaddy was they have that really high search traffic, but 74% of their traffic was coming from branded searches. So people searching for specifically GoDaddy or one of their product offering names. So when I see that data, I'm like, well, maybe they're not as strong on organic search as I once thought. And I would never have known that unless I had this really good data, being able to give me some details. We can come in here and we can search a little bit further by going and clicking on the left-hand side and on organic search. I love this report because it doesn't just show me the numbers like we were looking at before. It starts to show me breakouts. Over on the right-hand side, it shows me the breakout of knowledge graph, instant answers, local pack, and news. And you might be wondering why this is important, but the knowledge graph dominates the page one results, and it's becoming more and more important as we move forward with local search. So if you're not paying attention to the knowledge graph, you need to be paying attention to the knowledge graph. And as our vendors, and we looked at that, most of them were ranking fairly low in this, although WP Engine had 12% for that. So for me, as I did my research, I would say, well, if WP Engine is really strong in the knowledge graph, I need to drill down into those phrases to see what those phrases are, because I know they're going to be more important tomorrow than they are today. So I have to be aware of that. The other part of this page that is wonderful is you're seeing where they rank for a keyword. So like WordPress tutorial, and you get the actual URL that's ranking. If you've ever gone through Google Search Console, and if you were on my webinar last month, we looked at that, and I showed you how that data is given to you for free, and it shows you the top keywords and it shows you the top pages. Marrying that data up is mind-numbing because it takes hours and hours to do, and it's very tedious. But guess what? If you have SEMrush, you don't have to do that anymore. SEMrush is doing it for you. All you have to do is come over here and export this, and you can export it right to Excel. That whole data we saw in Google Search Console last month, you don't have to use it because it's all sitting right here in a really to use, beautiful presentation that you can sort, you can filter, and you can export. So really good data available for you to use. And if you do try out this package, definitely go and export that data for yourself on your website as well as others. Okay, let's look at traffic analytics, because this is another one that has super good data. And now what I really like about this is because, think about this as you're looking at your competitors. You want to know where their traffic's coming from? This is the breakout. So 42% of the people coming to SiteGround's website type in their URL and go directly to it. 8% are getting referred in from other websites or blogs. 48% are coming from search, and only 0.46% come from social. Now, I know SiteGround, and they're a great company, and they do a wonderful job on Instagram and other social media outlets. Yet only 0.46% of their traffic's actually coming in from social media. So if you're a hosting company, you have to kind of wonder how much time you really should be spending there. Now, say we knew 8% of their traffic's coming from referrals. Where are those referral websites? We see it right here in this next column, and you can even go look at another full report and export that data. If you want to mimic some of their traffic and go after some of these other sites, now you've got the data to do that. Now, I love this one because social media is very important to search, and it's very important for driving traffic. And with this tool, you can figure out what social media sites each vendor is using to drive in traffic. And it's super, super powerful. So like, for example, in this instance, we're seeing that 50% of the social activity for SiteGround comes from Facebook, and 22% is coming from YouTube. When we look at the other vendors, GoDaddy had 92% of their social media traffic coming from Facebook. HostGator had actually a fairly strong Twitter activity. Twitter was 10% for them. Bluehost had activity on Pinterest, which really floored me, and Reddit. And then WP Engine was relying a lot on Reddit and Facebook. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. And then Liquid Web was primarily Facebook. What I love, again, you get to see what's working for these people. So if I know that HostGator is driving a lot of traffic from Twitter and more than everybody else, I want to go look at their Twitter profile. If I know that Pinterest is driving a lot of traffic for Bluehost, I want to go see where their Bluehost is talked about on Pinterest and see what kind of images and content they're using to make that successful. If I know SiteGround is driving 22% of their social activity through YouTube, I got to go check out YouTube for them and see what kind of videos are out there and try to weave some of that goodness into my own marketing programs. And then you can look at search engines. You may think that Google's the only search engine, but really there are other search engines available, and there's DuckDuckGo, which is hysterical. SiteGround had the most activity through DuckDuckGo. Bluehost had the most activity through Bing and Yahoo. And then the rest of them were really relying on Google. But again, all this information I wouldn't be able to get from anywhere else because it's not available. And then if I come over here and I highlight on the different months, I can see how this may have shifted over time. And again, you can do this by vendor or by competitor and pull up all this type of data. I can also see some great activity like bounce rate. You know, who's got the lowest bounce rate? Why might they have the lowest bounce rate or high bounce rate? Visit duration, and you can really start to look at your bounce rate versus other people's bounce rate. Same thing about visit duration, pages per view that they have on the website, and really see where you line up with your competition. And if you have issues that are larger than you realize, this data is going to point that out for you. So I've hit the highlights of SEMrush. Again, it is my favorite SEO tool outside of KW Finder, which we will get to in right after Ahrefs. So Ahrefs is the next one. This one, they actually came to me and offered me a free version for 2 months so I could try it, which was very cool. And it was just very timely with this presentation. It is a premium software package, but it does have really good data for looking at backlinks. And that's what I thought all it did. I mean, originally I thought that was the only data that it offered was that backlink, but it doesn't. It has a lot of other data available. So you've got this Site Explorer, which provides lots of good information on inbound links and things like that. And the backlinks, you can see what new or lost backlinks they have. And if you're trying to build up your off-page SEO, backlinks are important, and this data will give you some ideas on where you can discover some of that information. You can look at anchor text. You can look at the top content that has referring traffic coming into it. So you can see which content within a competitor's profile is really driving the most links and traffic coming in. And you can do the same thing for you. This is like one of the best pieces of data available within Ahrefs because it provides you actionable data that you can use to kind of build up your own off-site SEO activity. For some reason, Ahrefs is just kind of frozen, which is unfortunate. Let me see if I can click on another report and see if that will come up. All of this left-hand column is different reports that provides really, really good data. Oh, there we go. There's this refresh. So there's new keywords that you can see, how to upload theme to WordPress. We can see movements. We can see top pages. Top pages are really cool because you can see, again, where is most of their activity coming from. And you can see, remember we saw tutorials, WordPress tutorials elsewhere in another software? Well, there we see it right there. And we can see the traffic that's coming into it per month, which is quite a bit. You know, lots of good information. And just like those other tools, you can export this. So even if you just get these tools for just 1 month, you can deep dive your competition, export it, and you can spend the next 3 to 4 months going through it and utilizing it for your own marketing tasks. Okay, so one last tool that I want to cover is KW Finder. This gives you 3 free searches per month, or excuse me, per day, but then you can buy, and it's like $12 a month. I can't do SEO without knowing what the search volumes are for phrases and where we stand. So I mentioned at the beginning of this webinar that managed WordPress hosting is something that most of these guys are targeting. It's the darling of hosting right now. So if we put that phrase in, we can look at it by suggestions. So just generic suggestions that would relate to it. Autocomplete within Google, and then those questions that people tend to ask now, like what is or how to and things like that. But let's just look at one quick. So manage WordPress hosting. I can click on this, and over on the right-hand side, it starts to show me page one data. I can see who's ranking on page one for that phrase, and I can start to see additional data points. This is what helps you figure out why they're ranking for a given phrase. So domain authority, page authority, a Moz rank, a Moz trust factor, inbound links. These are still important to SEO, and these are showing you by page or by URL. Facebook activity, the shares, the comments, the likes on Facebook. Google Plus. Everybody thinks Google Plus is dead, but guess what? It still influences SEO. And then you can start to see what the rank of each one of these guys is for this phrase, and it gives you your ability to potentially outrank them. And the higher the number, the harder it is to outrank. So 75 is for HostGator. So overall, they're saying, okay, HostGator, for a variety of reasons, would be hard to overcome this. And you might wonder why. Well, they've got 11,000 likes somehow for this page on Facebook, which is kind of influencing their rank. The ones for WP Engine, this is a fluke. I don't know why it's showing this. This is just some type of bug in the software, and why I've been working on the course the last couple of weeks, and this webinar, it hasn't gone away, but that's a fluke. So you just kind of got to discount that. But now, like, remember I said WP Beginner was a competitor, even though they're not a direct competitor. Well, why are they ranking? 448 likes on Facebook, 30 shares for Google Plus or pluses. They've got over 200 links coming into the page, and then overall they've got a really strong domain authority. Domain being, the website, how much trust and how important is that in the world? And it's a 76, and that's pretty high. So do I want to go after WP Beginner to outrank them for this phrase? Probably not. But I could look at some of the other ones, and if you look at Code and WP, they're only 44. Those are the ones that we could potentially outrank and push them down further. So just some really good information with KW Finder. If you take away from this webinar, the tools that I would really suggest that you use, it would be SEMrush, KW Finder, and then the Moz toolbar is really good. It's free. And then those would be the top ones that I use frequently, from the development and the design standpoint. And with SEO clients, I use DinoMapper, but those are my top ones. I think the other tools are great, but I know you only have so much money that you can spend per month on SEO and reports and things like that. If you're working and you have clients that you want to report out to for SEO, these tools all have lots of white label offerings. So you can look at that to be able to produce reports for your clients and brand them as your company providing them. All right, Nathan, I have rambled for quite a bit, so I'm going to turn things over to you to see if we have any FAQs that we should be talking about.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks very much for wonderful information today, Rebecca. And before we get to the questions, there is something very important that I think everybody listening needs to be aware of. Excellent content today. Rebecca is always a wealth of knowledge. She's a great presenter. And if you enjoyed this and maybe some of the other webinars we've had from Rebecca here on iThemes Training, we want to let you know and make you aware of a special event that's coming up toward the end of April. Our SEO Summit, it's there on the screen, 9 full hours of SEO training with an emphasis on practical application for your business. So Rebecca, you want to tell us just a little bit about that?
Sure. So most of you know I've been doing and presenting SEO boot camps, which are on-site workshops, right? And they're 3 full days. The problem with my SEO bootcamp is you physically have to get to the bootcamp, and not everybody can physically travel to get there. So Corey Miller came up with the idea of having an SEO Summit, which is like our SEO bootcamp, but it's a scaled down version of it. And we're going to do 3 days online. Each day we're going to have 3 hours of education. 2 weeks prior to the summit, you're going to start getting homework assigned to you every single day. And don't panic about the homework, because the attendees that came to the first SEO bootcamp, they said that that was one of the most valuable pieces of the workshop, was because having that homework beforehand started you for 2 weeks thinking about SEO without even realizing you're thinking about SEO. I'm having you fill out information about you and your target market, And in doing so, you're preparing yourself for the education that you're going to embark on with that SEO Bootcamp experience. We're going to do the same thing for SEO Summit. And so if you are on the sales page at all, if you just scroll down, you're going to start seeing the agenda. So we'll spend 3 hours going through the agenda items, and then you're going to have homework to do after the live class, and that will be each day. You'll see that there's a training agenda and homework. This homework is going to be in addition to what you're doing before boot camp, and please don't let the homework scare you. The homework before boot camp isn't going to take a ton of time. It's like 15 to 30 minutes per day for the assignments that I sent out. The homework at night for the summit is going to take a little bit longer, but it's going to be worth it, because the reason we do this is, and we learn this also at boot camp, is it reinforces what you're learning, and it applies it to your website or your blog, or even if you're doing this for a client. We had a couple of people at boot camp that did it for clients, and it's reinforcing the education. It's making it actionable for you right away. And that's the whole point of this. Is it's great to sit through webinars and have them once a month, but you're getting pieces and parts, and the summit takes the process from start to finish and pushes it into one educational week that you can get that information and then have homework that goes along with it. So join us for SEO Bootcamp, which is, by the way, at iThemes in May, if you can. Tickets are available, or we have 25 available. Or if you can't travel to Oklahoma City, join us for SEO Summit in April. And just by the way, 26 is my birthday, and I'm choosing to spend it with you, teaching you SEO, because I think it's so important for everyone. And honestly, I couldn't think of a better way to spend it. So that's just a little bit about that event and why I think it's a wonderful opportunity. And Nathan, I'll hand it back to you.
Yeah, awesome. I tell you, how many webinars or workshops have you guys been to where you enjoyed the content, but you walked away and there was no practical difference made in your life or business? I've been to far too many of those, and I am loving the intentional pre-work and post-work that are integral to this SEO Summit to help you drill down these concepts into your business. I think it's wonderful, and this is going to be a great event for everybody involved. So that's Monday, April 24th through Wednesday, April 26th. You've got the time, and the link is there in the chat room for that. It is $197 to get access to the summit. If you are an iThemes training member, you do receive this event for free with your grandfathered membership. But for those of you who are on the call today and you are not an iThemes training member, you can get $50 off of this $197 price tag through the end of the month. And the coupon code is SEO Summit, which I'm typing in the chat room. SEO Summit gets you $50 off the $197 price tag for this event. So hope you guys will take a look at that. And let's branch out to some questions now. I recorded a few as the webinar was going along. We'll start in with those, and if you have questions, go ahead and drop them there in the chat room, and we'll see if we can get to those before the end of today's time. So Rebecca, one of the questions I saw that was very interesting to me was a couple of folks asked, where do these tools like SpyFy and SEMrush and some of the others get this information?
So it varies by software platform. So some of them are going to get information from Google, and so KW Finder, they're using the Google API, and you'll see when we go to actually import, because you can actually import keywords, it's got you maxed at 700. 700 magically is the same limit that Google AdWords has for their keyword tool. So KW Finder, I'm pretty sure, is getting their data directly from Google through the API and pushing that out to everybody. But the other ones, I think it's either Ahrefs or it's SEMrush. They actually have their own crawlers that go through the world's websites and blogs, and they constantly crawl the sites and collect the data. And if you look at the about pages for the different software platforms, you'll see they'll talk about where their data comes from and why it's reliable. There's lots of other tools, but these are the ones that I found that are the most reliable because I actually did, before I narrowed down on these tools, I compared them, websites that I had access to with Google Analytics and Google Search Console, to the data being shown in these reports. And these guys had the most accurate data, which is why I picked them. That was a great question, by the way.
Yeah, it's a pretty amazing amount of information that's there. Really interesting tools. So as we were looking at the footer silos, I think it was on GoDaddy, a couple of folks talked about how important are those types of footers and silos to SEO?
Okay, so from an SEO standpoint, keyword silos are very important because it sets up structure for the search engines and they understand where the buckets of content are in your website. And I would willing to bet that SiteGround has a silo for WordPress and a silo for Joomla because they're two separate topics, right? And they're going to have lots of content within their silos. And you can see they were the ones that had all of the different type of great keywords and links down here. The footer links, they're good for people because it allows you to get to the most important content on the website, but they're also, kind of triggers to the search engines to say, I am linking site-wide to WordPress hosting. If I'm linking site-wide to WordPress hosting or even WooCommerce hosting, which apparently everybody's targeting, I didn't realize it until I did this exercise, those have to be important keywords. And the search engines, because of HTML5 and schema and things, they know the breakout of these pages. They can understand header versus footer versus sidebar and content. They see that, and so they're looking at these links, and it gives them data points. So yes, they are important. Do you have to have everything in your footer? No. Do you have to have your most important pages in your footer? It can certainly help, and it helps not just the search engines, but the visitors that are coming because they can quickly find information. There are people like my husband who never look at the top navigation bar. He always just starts drilling down, and I don't know why. That's why his head works, but it does. So, they're good for usability for sure.
Awesome. So there's a couple of questions in the chat room about if you're an existing iThemes training member, how you get access. Kristen, if you're still in the chat room, could you answer that question? And we'll move on to the next one here for Rebecca. Rebecca, when we were looking at those tools and we saw the traffic cost, what does that number actually mean? Is that what they would have to pay to get that much traffic to the website?
So it's easy to figure out the traffic cost. The traffic cost, well, I'm going to rephrase that. It's easy to figure out the traffic cost for pay-per-click because Google has, estimated and averages that are getting spent by keyword for each click. So that's how they figure out the pay-per-click cost. I am assuming, but I'd have to research that those same type of metrics are getting pushed over to the organic data. So they would say that, if you were to have to pay for this, it would cost you X amount. And they're using those figures times the amount of click-throughs for a given keyword to figure out those traffic dollar amounts.
That's amazing how they can accumulate all that information.
Isn't it?
Absolutely amazing.
Technology is an amazing beast, I'll tell you.
All right, so if you have more questions, please feel free to drop those in the chat. I have a few more here that I've collected from the chat room along the way. Rebecca, is there a way to affect the amount of inbound links you receive?
Absolutely. Good old-fashioned marketing is a huge asset to you with creating good inbound marketing. Like, I've said this before on webinars and podcasts. Y'all think that I give away this free education because I love you so much. Well, I do, but I also do it because I always get inbound links from it. Every time that someone's promoting me coming on a podcast or doing a webinar or going to speak at a WordCamp, I'm getting an inbound link from a credible site within my industry and within my niche. That helps me rank. There's a reasons why I do that. I just had a guest blog post on studiopress.blog. Why did I do that? Well, to get in front of their audience, but also to garnish some inbound links. So by giving yourself freely, those inbound links come. You can also, there's a lot of other ways to do it. And we've talked about some with prior webinars. We will talk about that with SEO Summit for sure and SEO Bootcamp both. So you could revisit one of my old presentations on SlideShare and get some ideas for digging up some of those inbound links for sure.
Excellent. So here's a good question. For those of our listeners who are not working in the English language, do you have some tools to recommend for SEO for non-English websites?
SEMrush for sure pulled data by country. So you wouldn't just be looking at US data, and I bet you SpyFy does as well. I just wasn't paying attention. It probably wasn't just as visible as it is with the SEMrush. I don't know of any tools that have the whole software in another language, because honestly, I only speak English and very broken Spanish, so I didn't even pay attention to it, and I apologize for that.
Great. All right, I've got one more question in my list here. If you have another question for Rebecca, please drop that in the chat room. Rebecca, several folks have asked what your favorite keyword tool is.
For looking at potential keywords and volumes, I absolutely love KW Finder. Without question, I think it's a fabulous tool. I can't live without it. And then for looking at potential keyword opportunities for me, like, where I'm potentially ranking but not ranking well enough, or looking at competitors and trying to get ideas for, to build up my seed list, SEMrush is my next favorite. Those are the tools that I can't live without. I mean, hands down, I gotta have it. I gotta allocate money for them because they're so important to me.
Awesome. And one last here, Joseph mentioned Hotfrog. Are you familiar with Hotfrog, and how does that compare to DinoMapper?
I am familiar with Hotfrog. I do have it as part of my recommended tools on the DIY SEO courses website. I did not love it as much as these other tools. And again, you gotta remember that people digest data differently. I digest the data on SEMrush very well, right? It's presented in a manner that makes me happy. Same thing for SpyFy and KW Finder. And that's one of the reasons why I like those tools. And, once I get to any type of presentation that looks like it's from the 80s and it looks like it's a DOS, the old DOS software, my mind starts to tune it out because it's dated looking, and that's me, right? So, you just have to take that into account as you're looking at tools. Just because I say SEMrush is my favorite, you might look at it and you may struggle with the way it presents data. And to keep that in mind as you're reviewing tools.
Awesome. Well, it's 2:00. One last question that just popped in here, and we'll wrap things up. Rebecca, how important in your mind is website speed as compared to other factors in SEO?
Okay, so that is a great question, and we're running over, but I still want to make sure we cover this because it's so much. It's so important. So when I was at WordCamp US, Miley Ohe, who actually just left Google this week, she came to present there, and that was something that she spoke about. She said that Google is very focused on speed. They're going to continue to push emphasis on high-performing websites in regards to speed, and the reason they're doing it is because they have yet to see the world's internet population arrive, right? We are all on the internet, but we are not the majority of the world. There are so many third world countries that are just now coming online, and their only true access to coming online is mobile devices and on poor performing networks. That means AMP and high performing websites are incredibly important to the search engines because that's the way they're going to reach those new users. It has to be easy to access websites. They have to be mobile friendly. They have to have great performance, because otherwise they are not accessible to people with only mobile devices and crappy networks. So it's super important now, and it's going to become even more important later. I moved all of my websites over to Liquid Web this month, and I did so because they had better speed. They're focused on speed, and I just truly believe they're managed WordPress hosting. And I did that because speed is important. I wouldn't have paid to move, my technical staff to move like 40 websites unless I absolutely had to. And I viewed it like I had to because, it was a noticeable improvement, because I know it does influence SEO.
Well, I don't know about you folks, but this has been absolutely phenomenal information. Rebecca, thank you so much for spending time with us today. Make sure you guys thank her there in the chat room for a wonderful presentation. Do again want to remind you of the SEO Summit coming up April 24th through the 26th of this year, and the coupon code SEO Summit will get you $50 off through the end of the month. I just dropped a link in the chat room, which if you click it, takes you right to the cart with the coupon applied, and you can register for this online event. So thanks again for being with us here for the last hour for this great SEO training with Rebecca Gill, and hope you have a wonderful rest of the week. Thanks again, Rebecca.
Thank you, everybody.
And we'll see you all soon.